Welcome, I'm Catherine Hadro, and this is EWTN Pro-Life Weekly.
Will you commit to not using taxpayer money to fund abortions and abortion providers?
And while we probably will not agree on all the issues, I can say to you that we will definitely follow the law.
Capitol Hill hearing. Senators this week questioned President Biden's nominee to lead the Health and Human Services Department, Javier Becerra. We speak with two former HHS officials who sound the alarm over Becerra's abortion record as we take a look at the pro-life concerns surrounding his nomination. Reaching record levels. Planned Parenthood releases its latest annual report revealing a 15-year high in abortion numbers and yet another decrease in women's health services. Touching testimony as South Carolina House Democrats staged a dramatic walk-off during the state's heartbeat bill debate. One lawmaker shared her powerful pro-life story on the House floor. She joins us here.
Most people agree that partial birth abortion is awful. You voted against a ban on partial birth abortion. Why?
When I come to these issues, I understand that we may not always agree on where to go, but I think we can find some common ground.
I think we can reach common ground on many issues, but on partial birth abortion, it sounds like we're not going to reach common ground there.
At a Senate confirmation hearing this week, Republican Utah Senator Mitt Romney questions Javier Becerra over his support for late-term abortion. Becerra is President Joe Biden's nominee to lead the Health and Human Services Department, and he has an extreme pro-abortion record throughout his career. From his time in Congress to his time as California Attorney General, Becerra has prosecuted pro-life advocates and has faced off against pro-life pregnancy care centers and the Little Sisters of the Poor at the Supreme Court. Other Republican senators also raised concerns over Becerra's record and qualifications. Given the 50-50 Senate split, it remains to be seen if Becerra will be confirmed to be the next HHS secretary. We are joined on Skype now with two former top HHS officials. Roger Severino is the former director of the Office for Civil Rights in the HHS department, serving from 2017 to 2020. Today, he is a senior fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center, where he directs the HHS Accountability Project. Valerie Huber is the former special representative for global women's health, having served within the HHS Department Office of Global Affairs during the Trump administration. Roger, I'll go to you first. Your HHS office twice found Becerra in violation of federal conscience laws while he was in California Attorney General's role. Needless to say, you've had your share of run-ins with him. Your thoughts if Becerra is confirmed to be the next HHS secretary?
Well, he should not be confirmed. He's not qualified to be the secretary of HHS. First, he has no public health experience to speak of. And as you note, he was my primary antagonist when I was at HHS. I was head of the Civil Rights Office and twice found him liable for violating conscience protection laws. These are laws that are bipartisan, passed by Congress every single year, like the Weldon Amendment. And to pick Javier Becerra to be the head of this agency presents an incredible conflict of interest. Is he going to be the judge in his own case? He cost his state $200 million in HHS funds because he was forcing nuns to provide abortion coverage for fellow nuns. That doesn't make any sense. That alone should disqualify him from being the HHS secretary. He's a divisive pick. He's focused on abortion above all else. He's not the one who's going to lead us out of this COVID-19 pandemic.
Valerie, if Becerra is confirmed, what global impact would this have for the pro-life issue?
Well, it's going to have a huge global impact. President Biden, very early in the administration, made it very clear that domestic issues and global issues are going to be linked. And when it comes to women's health, the priority is going to be abortion. So we know with or without Becerra, that's going to be the priority. However, just as Roger said, having someone who is such a radical pro-abortion advocate will move that agenda to its limits. And being at HHS is really ground zero for protecting life or for promoting abortion.
Under your leadership, Roger, you created a conscience and religious freedom division within the Office of Civil Rights at HHS. Would that division be threatened with Secretary Becerra?
Absolutely. You could tell by his actions. He sued to stop a conscience regulation that was drafted by that very same Conscience and Religious Freedom Division. This should not be an issue of debate. Conscience and religious freedom is in the law. It's in the First Amendment. Javier Becerra does not respect it. He went out of his way to sue, including HHS and the Little Sisters of the Poor, to stop the protections for their conscience. He should not be the head of HHS because he is focused like a laser beam on these culture war issues. He tweeted over a course of 2 years 143 times on abortion, on contraception, on LGBT issues. That's where his heart is. That's what he cares about most. And that's fine. Many people disagree on these issues, but he shouldn't use his views to taint the mission of HHS, which is to protect all human life from conception till natural death, and not to be so focused on the culture wars.
Valerie, Planned Parenthood is no fan of either one of you who are here. I think we even have some video of Planned Parenthood's digital attacks against you both. Meanwhile, Planned Parenthood is applauding Becerra's HHS nomination. Tell us what we need to know. Because, Valerie, it does seem that Planned Parenthood is working closely with the Biden administration to undo pro-life protections. Biden has rescinded the Mexico City policy. He said he will withdraw from the Geneva Consensus Declaration, which you worked on directly. What do we need to know, and what's your reaction to President Biden undoing these pro-life protections so quickly?
Well, it is almost heart-stopping. The Mexico City policy and it being rescinded very early on is not so much of a surprise, because that is a hot potato that whether it's a Republican or Democratic administration predicts whether Mexico City will be in place. But by its being rescinded, that means that U.S. taxpayer dollars are going to be used to promote and to fund NGOs around the world who provide abortion. Rescinding and the Geneva Consensus Declaration, I think, is especially telling, because this is a new initiative never undertaken by any administration here in the United States, where we assembled a group of 35 countries to promote life, promote the family, and the sovereign right of countries to make their own laws on this. Why it is so chilling is because even though 34 countries will still remain, we know that under the Obama administration, countries were pressured to change their laws on the family, pressured to change their laws on abortion, and federal funding was threatened to be withdrawn if they didn't do so. So most pro-life advocates here in the United States and citizens who don't want their taxpayer dollars used for abortion often focus only on what's happening here within the borders of the United States government. What that does is gives a president and an HHS secretary who is so focused on abortion plenty of space for mischief making that could result in abortion being deemed an international human right.
I'd like to ask you both, just to put into perspective for us, what role does the HHS department have when it comes to the abortion issue? Why is Becerra's nomination something pro-lifers need to pay attention to? Roger.
It is the preeminent agency touching on issues of life. It's the largest agency by budget. It has Medicaid and Medicare. We have the Hyde Amendment that prohibits taxpayer spending on abortion. That's imperiled. Javier Becerra is in favor of partial birth abortion. He's in favor of public funding of abortion. And if you have the weight of the largest federal agency by budget pushing these wedge agenda issues, then it'll be horrible for the pro-life movement and bad for the American people.
Valerie, what's your answer to that question, the role of HHS in the abortion issue?
Well, I agree with Roger. The Biden administration has really already rolled out the Biden doctrine on health and women's health in particular, and it equates to abortion above all else. HHS is ground zero for either the protection of life or the promotion of abortion. Just to give a little perspective, under President Trump, the great majority of all pro-life policies were implemented at HHS. So of all cabinet nominations, I think the HHS secretary is one of, if not the most important nomination. Becerra is not fit for this, and his radical advocacy makes him absolutely unfit to head an agency that should be focused on protecting the health and life of every American, including those unborn.
Roger, we only have about a minute left, but you recently filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration. Can you give us a brief overview of why that is?
Sure. I was appointed to an independent agency first in August of last year, and then reappointed to a 3-year term to give advice on good government, the Administrative Conference of the United States. For some reason, President Biden thinks my advice is dangerous and unwanted. I do not have any power to form policy, just to give advice. Congress made it an independent agency for a reason. Yet Biden, in a fit of whether it's pettiness or vindictiveness, has gone after me and other members to try to force us out. And I'm not one to be bullied, so I sued in federal court. When Congress said it's a 3-year term for an agency, it's a 3-year term. President Trump didn't dismiss Obama folks and let them serve out their 3 years. What is he afraid of? Is he afraid of what I could bring to the table, or is it vindictiveness? I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say in response to my lawsuit.
Well, really powerful insight from two former HHS officials, Roger Severino and Valerie Huber. Thank you both.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
On top of Becerra's confirmation hearing, there's other major pro-life news we're monitoring on Capitol Hill. Congress takes up the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill, which includes abortion funding. The COVID proposal contains $750 million for global health and billions of dollars for community health centers, but without pro-life Hyde Amendment protections. That means the funding could go towards abortions, abortion coverage, or abortion providers. Pro-life groups are also raising concerns over the Equality Act. The bill redefines sex to include sexual orientation, gender identity, as well as pregnancy, childbirth, or a related condition. That is largely interpreted to mean patients can insist on abortion from an individual doctor, compelling medical professionals to participate in abortion procedures. Prudence Robertson, the communications associate for the Susan B. Anthony List, joins us now for pro-life analysis. Prudence, I do want to get your thoughts on Becerra, but first, this is being called a tsunami week for the pro-life movement because we're also facing, as I just shared, the COVID relief bill and the Equality Act. What do pro-lifers need to know?
Right, so what they need to know is that Democrats are really pulling out the stops when it comes to paying back the abortion lobby this week. They, we expect, are going to pass in the House the COVID relief bill, which, as is written, would force taxpayers to fund abortion on demand. Once again, they're using the coronavirus to push their radical agenda, this time by denying to include language from the Hyde Amendment in that bill. We also expect a vote on the Equality Act, which really is just an attempt to deceive the American people. While Democrats are claiming that this bill stands for human rights and equality, it really pushes the most extreme aspects of their party, including their belief in abortion. And it includes abortion in the definition of sex discrimination right alongside pregnancy and childbirth, putting abortion on the same level as giving birth to a child. It really just is outrageous, and we're tracking both of these items very closely. It's important that our movement is at the tip of the spear on these issues.
Absolutely. Okay, turning to Becerra now, we have seen that Javier Becerra is an aggressive abortion advocate. What stands out to you from his record that might indicate how he would rule if he does get confirmed as HHS secretary?
Well, Catherine, he would truly be an enemy to every pro-life policy that we have worked to promote so hard in the pro-life movement for decades. His record truly does span decades. He voted for partial birth abortion, as you said earlier in the show, and he was even questioned on that just yesterday by Senator Mitt Romney, and he refused to denounce that vote. He also voted against the late-term ban on abortion, the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, and the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, which protects babies who are already born, who have survived a failed abortion and deserve medical care. And that's not where it stops. As Attorney General in California, he tried to force the Little Sisters of the Poor and people of faith to include abortion coverage in their health care plans. And he even tried to force pro-life community health centers to provide information about abortion in their clinics. And that just completely goes against their mission to provide life-affirming care and alternatives to women who are contemplating abortion. And just to add one more thing, David Daleiden, he attacked him for his role as a pro-life citizen journalist in exposing Planned Parenthood for the buying and selling of baby body parts. He revived 14 felony charges that VP Kamala Harris initially instigated. He revived those charges against him because he wanted to attack the pro-life work that David Daleiden has done, and it's just wrong, and he's completely unfit for this position.
Prudence, during the Senate confirmation hearings this week, Republican Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina did raise concerns over Becerra's qualifications. We know that's nothing new. That is definitely being questioned. But Prudence, can you explain all the different health issues that do fall under the HHS department and why pro-lifers need to pay attention to this?
Right. Well, as Mr. Severino said before, HHS is the department that is at the center of determining abortion policy. And that's why Joe Biden picked Xavier Becerra for this position. He knows that there is no one who is more eager to advocate for his radical agenda of abortion on demand. This is where decisions are made concerning the Hyde Amendment, taxpayer-funded abortion, where conscience protections decisions are made. American people should never be forced to be complicit in abortion against their will, especially if it goes against their deeply held moral beliefs. This is where restrictions are put on dangerous chemical abortions, which are on the rise. Women, more often than not, are choosing chemical abortion, and that makes the woman the abortionist, putting them in their homes and opens them up to a host of risks, and obviously putting their unborn child at risk too. So it's so important to emphasize that Becerra really has thrown away any guise of being moderate on this issue. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and it's crucial that we stop his nomination.
Thank you for that solid analysis. Prudence Robertson with the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
In our call to action segment, we tell you when there's an important pro-life action we need you to take. President Biden's pick to lead HHS, Xavier Becerra, has a radical record on abortion. As California Attorney General, Becerra prosecuted pro-life advocates, pushed to liberalize abortion laws, and faced off against the Little Sisters of the Poor and pregnancy care centers at the Supreme Court. While the Biden administration tries to paint Becerra as a moderate HHS nominee, he is anything but when it comes to the abortion issue. As Becerra faces his Senate confirmation hearings this week, it is the critical time for the pro-life movement to speak up and speak out. Here is this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com and tell your senator to reject the nomination of Xavier Becerra as Secretary of Health and Human Services. The HHS department is one of the most consequential for the pro-life issue, and Becerra's confirmation could be devastating for the pro-life movement. The Senate is split 50-50, and it is not a sure thing that Becerra will be confirmed. If enough pro-lifers reach out to their senators, we could see Becerra's nomination fail to advance. Contact your senator directly by going to prolifeweekly.com and tell your senator to reject Becerra as HHS Secretary. Coming up, abortions are up at Planned Parenthood, according to their latest annual report. I speak out when we return. Plus,
all my friends that were, around me said, have an abortion.
a South Carolina state representative shared her pro-life testimony on the House floor last week and shares it with us here next.
Hello, family. The readings for the first Sunday of Lent mention the temptation of Jesus in the desert, which immediately followed his baptism in the Jordan River. We might wonder why God the Father allowed his Son to be tempted by Satan. But temptation is part of the experience of life. As Jesus felt pain, sorrow, and even death, he was not immune to the temptations of the world. However, unlike us, when he was tempted, he resisted every trick of the devil. If we face temptations, it doesn't mean that God has abandoned us. Temptation actually gives us an opportunity to answer the question, whom will we serve? When we overcome temptation, we grow in virtue. Each time that we resist these temptations, we become stronger in our faith. This is why God allows these tests in our spiritual lives, Christ won the victory over sin and temptation, which is why we need him as we face the devil's snares. Jesus courageously stood up to Satan with the truth of Scripture. As we journey through this Lenten season, we can follow Jesus and his holy example of a prayerful, brave refusal of sin. May God bless you.
For an ebook that features weekly Lenten reflections from Father Joseph, please visit EWTN.com/Lent.
Have you heard the good news? Icons is on EWTN. Join Father Augustino, Angelus, and Innocent on the search for people reflecting the light of Christ in the world.
At their everyday life, at work, at home, at school, they can be a witness to the Lord.
Holiness is not the privilege of the few, but it is the gift of so many.
We believe that people are living like this, and we're going to go find them.
Icons, Friday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern on EWTN.
Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Catherine Hadro. Planned Parenthood's latest annual report shows a 15-year high in abortions during a pandemic year. That is this week's Speak Out segment. Planned Parenthood had a 2.7% increase in abortions last year, according to its annual report released last week. Abortions continue to rise over recent years, while their other services on a drastic downward trend. Dr. Michael New, a political science professor and expert in statistics, shared this summary with EWTN Pro-Life Weekly to put Planned Parenthood's numbers into perspective. During the last 10 years, breast exams at Planned Parenthood went down nearly 64%. Prenatal services down over 72%. Meanwhile, abortions have gone up 7.7% in the last 10 years, and government funding has also increased by nearly 7%. Numbers don't lie. Planned Parenthood is not a women's health care clinic. Planned Parenthood is the nation's largest abortion business. How much more data will it take for everyone to clearly see that? Last year, Planned Parenthood committed over 350,000 abortions, over 350,000. How many adoptions did they refer to pregnant women? Not even 3,000. If you're a pregnant woman who walks into the doors of Planned Parenthood, it's important you know they have an agenda, a bottom line, a business plan. I pray that these jarring statistics wake up our culture, which seems to be blind to Planned Parenthood's abortion agenda. A federal judge has temporarily suspended South Carolina's new pro-life law, which bans abortions after a baby's heartbeat can be detected. That can happen as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster signed the heartbeat bill into law last week after it passed the state house, but the bill was not met without debate.
The Democratic caucus will not be with you today. Mr. Speaker, for that reason, the Democratic caucus is not going to participate in this farce of a vote about pretend life.
South Carolina's Democrat state representative staged a dramatic walkout during last week's House debate over the pro-life heartbeat bill. All but 2 House Democrats voted against it. But also last week, there was moving testimony on the House floor in support of the bill, particularly from State Representative Melissa Lackey-Aramis, who shared her pro-life witness.
When I was in high school, I was at the top of my class, doing what teenagers do, maybe had a little fun one night, too much, and found myself with child. All my friends that were, around me said, have an abortion. I went to that first ultrasound appointment, and I heard that little sound that you hear, that fast, 150 beat a minute little sound, a whipping noise. That sound to me proved to me that I had a human being inside of me.
She chose life for her baby daughter, who today is a 25-year-old woman and college graduate. Joining us now on Skype for this week's Pro-Life Focus is South Carolina State Representative Melissa Lackey-Aramis. Melissa, welcome. And wow, powerful testimony about how you were pregnant at 16 years old. Here we are today. You're obviously a successful woman, a state representative. What's your message to young women who also find themselves in an unplanned pregnancy and who may think finding success won't be possible?
Hey, thank you for having me. I just really want girls to know, young girls that find themselves pregnant, to know that abortion should not be an option. Your life is going to be a little bit harder with a baby. It's going to make you have to work a little harder, but you can do it. And, you know, abortion should not even be an option. We should not even say, you know, give someone an option to do an abortion. If, you know, you just have to let them know that there's other options out there, you know, and that includes adoption.
You shared about choosing life for your daughter after hearing her heartbeat. South Carolina's heartbeat law is currently suspended, but why do you think this law is important for women?
I think it's important because we need to quit just saying that it's about women's health care. And we are, you know, we're taking a woman's right to choose away so she can have all these health care. If I had a doctor tell me that I needed to abort my child, he wouldn't be my doctor anymore. So it's important for women to know that there's other options out there. We do not have to end it this way. So for South Carolinians, we wanted to let the world know that we stand up for life here. And I just pray that our court systems will follow suit in the Supreme Court.
It was a very personal testimony you shared on the South Carolina House floor last week. Was that difficult to share, and why did you ultimately decide it was important to do?
I was not prepared. I didn't have anything written down, but I just decided to tell my story. I just prayed about it the night before and said, I think just telling who I am might be a better testimony than having all these things written down. So I like I said, I didn't have anything planned, and it just came out the way it did. And I did not realize it was going to touch and inspire so many women. So many people have reached out to me saying they wish they had me in their corner, championing them along the way, so they wouldn't have had to make that decision. So that's been pretty powerful.
And tell us about your daughter today. I understand she's 25 years old
Yes,
now?
she is.
Wow, tell us about
Yes,
her.
she is. She now, like I said, she's a college graduate. She's living in New York City and loves it there. She's a very independent woman. She's an entrepreneur. She is in fashion field, and she is planning to launch a swim line come this spring. So we're very proud of her. She is headstrong like her mom. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but she has watched me along the way and be an independent person. And so I'm very proud of the Christian strong woman she is today.
Your speech did get a lot of attention. What's your message to people who think the heartbeat bill and pro-life laws are anti-woman?
I really want women to stop saying that. People keep saying to me, you had a choice, you had a choice. Really, I didn't. I wish nobody would have ever spoke those words to me, but I don't want women to think that's their only option. There should not be an option. When two people consent to have sexual relations and a baby comes to be part of it, then there is no second guessing that. That's a life inside of you, and God placed it there, and it's up to you to take care of that responsibility. So I don't even think abortion should be an option, and so we can just end that conversation altogether.
Well, thank you for your vulnerability and sharing your own personal witness, and for your courage. South Carolina State Representative Melissa Lackey-Aramis, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That does it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Until next time, we'd love to hear from you. Find us on social media at EWTN Pro-Life on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're there. You can also send us a message by emailing prolifeweekly@ewtn.com. We love to hear from you. Remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.